Hello, friends. Welcome to Storycraft. On this channel, you will enjoy world top stories. Let's view the video. Robert the Bruce, the warrior king who defeated England and freed Scotland. The betrayed noble, Robert's rise from outlaw to leader. A kingdom without a crown, Scotland was bleeding. King Alexander III had died suddenly, and with no male heir left, the throne sat empty. Ambitious nobles clawed at each other for power, and England's King Edward I loomed like a vulture, ready to snatch the crown for himself. Among the claimants stood Robert the Bruce, a young noble with royal blood, fierce ambition, and a dream of an independent Scotland. A family divided. Robert's family had long coveted the throne, but politics was a game of shifting loyalties. His grandfather had once sworn fealty to Edward I, hoping to win the crown through diplomacy. But Bruce saw what that loyalty had brought: subjugation. The Bruces were respected, yet distrusted, nobles caught between rebellion and submission. Robert would have to choose sides soon, and his decision would cost him everything. The murder. In the church in 1306, Robert made a brutal and fateful choice. In the chapel of Greyfriars Church in Dumfries, he confronted his rival, John Comyn, another claimant to the throne. Words turned to rage. Steel flashed. Blood spilled on sacred ground. Robert the Bruce had murdered a nobleman before the altar. There would be no turning back. The act branded him a criminal, but also sealed his path to the crown. A crown. Amid chaos weeks later, Robert was crowned King of Scots at Scone, but the ceremony was far from royal. His coronation cloak had to be stitched from old fabric. The sea, stone of destiny, stolen by Edward and taken to Westminster, was missing. But the people cheered. The nobles swore fealty. For the first time in years, Scotland had a king, an outlaw king, but a king nonetheless. Hunted like an animal Edward, I was furious. He labeled Bruce a usurper and sent his armies north. Bruce's first battles ended in disaster. Defeated and demoralized, he fled to the rugged highlands, hiding in caves and forests. His brothers were executed. His wife and daughter were imprisoned in England. His lands were seized. Once a noble, now a fugitive, Bruce lived like a ghost. Haunted, hunted, but not broken. The legend of the spider in. The darkness of a cave, wounded and weary, Bruce watched a spider struggle to spin its web. Time and again, the wind tore it down, but the spider tried again, and again, and again. At last, the web held. Inspired, Bruce rose. If the spider refused to give up, neither would he. The king in exile would become the warrior Scotland needed, rebirth of a warrior. Robert the Bruce emerged from hiding with fire in his veins. He raised a small army of loyal Highlanders and began a brutal guerrilla campaign. Castle by castle, village by village, he reclaimed Scotland. His enemies mocked him as a bandit, but the people began to whisper a different name: King. The betrayal, the bloodshed, the years in the shadows. They had forged him into a leader ready to challenge an empire. Crowned in chaos, Scotland's. Fight for a true king, a throne. Without peace, Robert the Bruce may have worn a crown, but Scotland was far from unified. Powerful clans questioned his right to rule. The Comyn family, once rivals, now martyrs, stirred rebellion from their graves. And worse, King Edward I of England was marching north with vengeance burning in his heart. Bruce was not ruling a theatre kingdom. He was surviving a storm. The wrath of the Hammer Edward I, known as the Hammer of the Scots, unleashed fury on Bruce's allies. Castles were crushed, Rebels were hanged, drawn, and quartered. Bruce's brothers, Nigel, Thomas, and Alexander, were captured and executed in grotesque displays meant to shatter morale. Bruce's own wife, Elizabeth, was imprisoned. His sister was hung in a cage like a trophy. England didn't just want to defeat Bruce, it wanted to erase him. The King's Road of Blood, despite the terror, Bruce pushed forward. He knew loyalty would not come from bloodlines alone. It had to be earned in the mud, the snow, and the fire of resistance. He rode tirelessly from clan to clan, appealing to honor, to pride, to the soul of Scotland. His speeches were not poetic, they were promises. "Fight with me," he swore, "and we take back our land or die as free men." The guerrilla crown, with no stronghold and no standing army, Bruce turned to the hills and forests. He adopted the tactics of wolves, striking fast, disappearing faster. English. Garrisons found themselves ambushed in mountain passes. Messengers vanished without a trace. By the time the enemy realized where Bruce had struck, he was already a shadow on another battlefield. Each small victory gave hope. Each castle taken, back whispered a single truth: the king was not dead. Clan by clan, heart by heart, slowly, Scotland began to shift. The Highland clans, long suspicious of the lowland nobility, began to rally behind Bruce. The MacDonalds, the Campbells, even old rivals, saw in him not just a king, but a symbol of survival. His scars became medals. His defeats became myths. And with every step, Bruce was no longer just Robert the Bruce. He was Scotland. The death of the tyrant in 1307. Edward I died en route to crushing Bruce once and for all. His son, Edward II, inherited the crown, but not his father's fire. Where the elder Edward ruled with iron, the younger ruled with confusion. The English army weakened, its grip on Scotland loosened. Bruce sensed the change in the wind. The hammer was gone, and now the anvil could be shattered. A king's war reignited with England reeling. Bruce launched a full campaign of liberation. He burned bridges behind him, so retreat was not an option. His army grew not through gold, but glory. Every man who joined him was promised one thing: freedom forged by their own hands. As Bruce marched south toward the heart of English power, in Scotland, one message echoed from the glens to the sea. The King of Scots had returned. Blood and loyalty. The battle of loyalty and survival. Betrayal in the ranks. Robert the Bruce's fight was not only against England, but also against treachery within his own ranks. Some Scottish nobles wavered, torn between loyalty to their clans and fear of English power. Friends became enemies overnight. Bruce had to be ruthless, not only with his foes, but with those who faltered. In this dangerous game, loyalty meant life or death. The Siege of Turnberry Castle. Bruce's first major test came at Turnberry Castle, a fortress held by English forces and Scottish traitors alike. The castle was a symbol of England's grip on Scotland's southwest coast. Bruce gathered a small but fiercely loyal force and launched a daring assault. The siege was brutal. Arrows darkened the sky, and the clash of steel rang through the night. Victory here would send a clear message. Robert the Bruce was a king who would fight for every inch of his land. Blood on the battlefield. The battle was fierce and bloody. Many of Bruce's men fell, but their sacrifice was not in vain. Turnberry's walls crumbled under relentless attacks. Captured enemies faced harsh justice. Some were pardoned, but many paid the ultimate price. Bruce knew mercy was a luxury he could not afford. Scotland's survival demanded fierce resolve, and every drop of blood spilled tightened the bond between Bruce and his followers. The rallying of the clans' news of the victory at Turnberry spread like wildfire. Clans that had once doubted Bruce now pledged their allegiance openly. Highland warriors, fierce and proud, joined his cause in growing numbers. The clans brought not only soldiers, but ancient traditions of honor and fierce independence. Their loyalty was not to a distant crown, but to the man who shared their struggle. Bruce became more than a king. He became the heart of a nation rising. The Battle of Loudoun Hill. In 1307, Bruce faced the English in open battle at Loudoun Hill. Outnumbered and outgunned, he used cunning and the landscape itself to his advantage. Narrow hills and marshes funneled the English army into a trap. Bruce's forces struck hard and fast, breaking the enemy's lines and routing them. This victory proved that Scotland's fight was no mere rebellion. It was a war for survival, led by a king who understood every blade of grass in his homeland. The price of leadership. Victory brought hope, but it also came at a cost. Bruce lost many close friends and trusted commanders in battle. The war was exhausting, both physically and mentally. Every decision carried weight. The lives of thousands hung in the balance. Yet Bruce never wavered. His determination burned brighter with each sacrifice, and his vision of a free Scotland fueled every struggle. The Kingdom Reborn. By the end of this brutal phase of war, Robert the Bruce had transformed from a hunted outlaw to a warrior king. His victories inspired a nation fractured by years of conflict. Scotland was no longer a land conquered. It was a kingdom fighting back, united under a leader who had spilled blood and sweat for its freedom. The battle for Scotland's soul had only just begun. The turning tide, victory at Bannockburn. The calm before the storm. By 1314, Robert the Bruce had rebuilt his forces and strengthened his hold on Scotland. The English crown, under Edward II, was desperate to crush the rebellion once and for all. Edward marched north with a massive army, determined to capture Stirling Castle, the key fortress guarding the gateway to Scotland. The stage was set for a battle that would decide the fate of a nation. Stirling, the prize and the threat. Stirling Castle was more than stone and mortar. It was a symbol of English dominance in Scotland. Its siege threatened to undo years of struggle. Bruce knew that if Stirling fell, his dream of a free Scotland would collapse. Holding the castle meant holding Scotland's heart. The king prepared his troops for a battle that would become legend. The gathering storm. The armies met near Bannockburn, a sprawling battlefield of fields and woods. Bruce's forces were smaller but fierce, hardened by years of guerrilla warfare and loyalty forged in fire. The English army was larger and better equipped, but overconfidence clouded their strategy. Bruce's soldiers knew the land, the tactics, and most importantly, their king. The power of strategy. Bruce's genius was in using the terrain to his advantage. He chose the battlefield carefully. Narrow fields hemmed in by marshes and woods limited the English cavalry's charge. Scottish schiltrons, tight circles of spearmen, formed an impenetrable wall. The English knights found themselves stuck and vulnerable. The battle quickly turned into a test of will and discipline. The Clash of Titans. For 2 days, fierce fighting shook Bannockburn. Spears clashed against armor, horses reared and stumbled. Bruce led from the front, inspiring his men with fearless courage. The English were pushed back again and again. Chaos spread through their ranks as Scottish forces exploited every weakness. The king's roar was heard above the battle cries, a beacon of hope for his people. A king's bold move. In a decisive moment, Bruce personally charged into the enemy lines, rallying his troops and breaking the English center. His bold leadership turned the tide completely. The English army, disorganized and defeated, began to retreat. Panic turned to rout. Bannockburn was a crushing victory, a turning point, not just in the war, but in Scottish history. The aftermath of glory, news of Bannockburn spread across Scotland and beyond. The victory shattered English hopes of controlling Scotland and ignited a fierce national pride. Bruce was no longer just a rebel king. He was a liberator. His victory was proof that Scotland could stand on its own, free from English rule. The battle became a symbol of courage, strategy, and unyielding spirit. The road ahead. Bannockburn was not the end, but it was the beginning of Scotland's true fight for freedom. The English crown would try again, but the Scots had tasted victory and would never back down. Bruce's leadership was stronger than ever, his vision clearer. Scotland's future was being written on the bloodied fields of Bannockburn, and its pages would be remembered forever. Legacy of a king. Scotland's freedom secured. A hard-won peace. After years of relentless war, Robert the Bruce's tireless struggle finally brought Scotland the peace it had long craved. England's grip loosened, and Scotland began to breathe freely again. The battlefield victories and unbreakable spirit of its king had reshaped the future of the nation forever. The Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. In 1328, Scotland's independence was formally recognized in the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. England acknowledged Robert the Bruce as the rightful King of Scots. This was more than just a political victory. It was the culmination of Bruce's vision and sacrifice. Scotland stood proud, no longer a land under foreign rule, but a kingdom, reborn. The king who united a nation. Bruce's legacy went beyond battlefields and treaties. He united clans that had once fought each other for centuries. His courage inspired a new generation of Scots to believe in their identity and sovereignty. Through bloodshed and sacrifice, he forged a nation where once there was division. The shadow of sacrifice. The cost of freedom was high. Bruce lost family, friends, and countless warriors. Yet, his determination never faltered. His story is one of perseverance, of a king who endured betrayal, exile, and near defeat, only to rise stronger. Scotland's freedom was bought with the blood of its people and the iron will of its warrior king. A legacy carved in stone and story. Today, Robert the Bruce is remembered as Scotland's greatest hero. Castles, monuments, and legends keep his memory alive. His fight for freedom shaped the country's soul and inspired future generations to defend their land and liberty. The warrior king's spirit lives on, in every corner of Scotland's rugged hills and proud hearts. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel Storycraft for more interesting videos.